Hello friends, welcome to PulsePoint. In this episode, are social conservatives at risk of having their bank accounts shut? Candace Owens postpones New Zealand show. Graphic anti-abortion ad runs on US TV. And Bob calls out the New Zealand media for bias. This and much more to come. Let's get into it. I'm James Williams. Will those who hold social conservative values and beliefs still be able to have a bank account in New Zealand soon? Now, this may not be a question you're currently pondering, but perhaps you should. As reported in the New Zealand Herald recently, the Court of Appeal is currently hearing a case where Bank of New Zealand is trying to cancel its 40-year relationship with Gloriavale due to an employment court decision where it found the community had broken the law. BNZ cited a breach of its human rights policy as the reason. Now, let me make this very clear from the start. Family First is not advocating for Gloriavale, and we're not trying to be critical of BNZ for its decision. However, we are covering this story because this case could set a precedent in this country, depending on the court's judgment. So let's take a quick look at the BNZ clause highlighted in the Court of Appeal's document, which is available on its website. As you will see, it says the bank can close an account for any reason. It then stipulates a few of the usual reasons, which are due to financial concerns which may arise. Now let's look at the response from the BNZ to end the relationship. BNZ follows a strong human rights policy. Under this policy, BNZ must not tolerate or be complicit in any activities that contribute to adverse human rights impacts. We believe that continuing to provide banking services to you would be inconsistent with our human rights policy. Now, let's park the court case to the side and look at the bigger picture. A human rights policy was evidenced to close the bank account. Is it that hard to imagine that human rights policies potentially could change at any time to incorporate other actions or beliefs which are deemed unsatisfactory? If you don't think this can happen, guess what? It is already happening at a disturbing level. I will highlight some of the cases now. Yes, there are plenty of examples. In 2020, Barclays Bank in the UK shut the accounts of 2 counselling services as they were accused of conversion therapy because they were helping people with unwanted sexual and gender issues. Again, in the UK, a Vickers account was closed by YBS in 2023 for speaking up against the transsexual agenda. Metro Bank refused to open an account for a parenting organisation called Our Duty because they opposed transgender procedures for children. Remember that Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau froze the bank accounts of citizens who protested his government's handling of COVID-19. And Nigel Farage, at the time of Brexit, was given the cold shoulder by his bank. And when he went looking for a new bank, 9 other financial institutions refused his business, seemingly due to reputational risk. The list goes on and on. Let's now use a hypothetical example, which could be hate speech laws changing to include sexual orientation. Right now in New Zealand, the Human Rights Commission is advocating for this, and there have been numerous attempts through our political system and our courts to have this imposed. If it ever did, do you think banks could then use this to restrict those who hold conservative and traditional beliefs like marriage is only between one man and one woman? What about those who publicly quote Bible verses which state that homosexual behaviour is a sin, like Israel Folau did? This would especially be the case at banks which have rainbow tick accreditation. Now, this is one of the statements which needs to be met for a company to keep its rainbow tick. As part of your commitment to corporate social responsibility, have you informed your customers and other stakeholders, e.g. your supply chain, clients, contractors, that you are committed to being a fair workplace in line with Rainbow Tick principles? And you can go to the Woke Up NZ website to see whether your bank is on board with this. Look, it's pretty hard to do life without a bank account. In fact, with moves afoot to become a cashless world, having a bank account has become an essential service. We believe it is a human right for everyone to be able to have a bank account, whatever their beliefs. And we hope that the Court of Appeal accommodates this human right in any precedent it sets. Candace Owens' show in New Zealand has been postponed. She was set to speak in Auckland on the 14th of November at Trust Arena. On its Facebook page, the venue announced that the promoter had decided to postpone the show. Meanwhile, across the ditch, attempts are being made to see Candace Owens' visa rejection be revoked. A petition, led by LifeSite News, has gained around 33,000 signatures, calling on the Australian government to allow Candace to speak. Well-known Australian freedom activist Monica Smith will present the petition to the government. She told LifeSite News recently that she is scared at the precedent that has been set.
Not long ago, we fought against drag queen story times in libraries, and an innocent child of any age could accidentally walk into a library and be confronted with a drag queen reading a very inappropriate book to them. However, adults can't willingly pay for tickets to see someone that they want to see. An adult can't see someone they want to see in Australia, but a child can accidentally walk into a drag queen story time. And I find this really dangerous. And personally, if Candace Owens can't come to Australia to see willing audiences, I'm worried that if I leave Australia, can I come back? The same reasons that they're denying her entry to Australia would be the same reason that they wouldn't want me here. If this is a precedence that is set, that an Australian member of parliament can just deny someone entry because they don't like what they're saying, I'm really worried about the precedent that sets.
Meanwhile, Candace Owens has spoken about the issue.
The headline, this is from news.com, Tony Burke blocks visa for far-right U.S. influencer Candace Owens. He is the immigration minister, by the way, over in Australia. And I also want to make it clear to you guys that I found out at the same time that the press found out. So his office chose to leak this. This is supposed to be a private application process. So unless I spoke about this, no one should have known about this. But they chose to leak this, which I think is absolutely stunning. But listen, I've been kind of stunned throughout this entire process, obviously, because Tony Burke, before we had even applied for a visa, said that if she applies, we're going to reject it. And I just am very interested in the process, I guess, just what goes on in this country, which is supposed to be, supposed to be a free country, I assume. But I guess the immigration minister can unilaterally make these sorts of decisions. Listen, I want to be careful here because I actually don't want to stoop to his level. I want to kind of take the approach of speaking about what's actually going on here because it's quite serious. It is quite serious when you have a person who says that the reason that I am not allowed to travel to Australia, never been in trouble in my entire life. I have traveled to, I was literally in Tokyo 2 weeks ago. I've traveled all over the world. Literally just all over the world, from China to Tokyo to everywhere, Hungary to Croatia to Italy to France. I mean, you name it, down to South America. I've been there and I've just never been in trouble. And yet the reason that he gave to the public was because I had the capacity to incite discord in almost every direction. The quotation he gave back in November was from downplaying the impact of the Holocaust with comments about Mengele through to claims that Muslims started slavery. Candace Owens has the capacity to incite discord in almost every direction. Okay, so of course that's just not true.
To the US election now, and while most of the attention has been on Trump and Kamala, an anti-abortion activist named Randall Terry has made a name for himself by running TV advertisements featuring pictures of aborted babies. Terry was a candidate in the presidential election and was standing for the Constitution Party. As he was a candidate, by law, TV stations had to show the graphic advertisement. One ad ran on ABC, and this is the editorial note which was posted. ABC says, by law, our TV stations must air the ad, according to the Federal Communication Commission. Broadcast stations are prohibited from censoring or rejecting political ads that are paid for and sponsored by legally qualified candidates. We will now show one of the advertisements, and while we have decided to blur some of the graphic images of the aborted babies, we still do want to issue a warning to those viewing.
Pastors, we're talking to you. Jesus said, what you do to children, you do to him. Jesus said, you're better off drowning in the sea with a millstone around your neck if you abuse children. The Democrat Party abuses children with perversion, deviancy, and death. If we support Democrats, we attack children and make void the word of God with blasphemous lies. They have pimped you for 30 pieces of silver to betray innocent blood. Repent. Stop supporting these criminals.
I'm Randall Terry, and I approve this message.
In a campaign which saw the two main presidential nominees, Kamala and Trump, talk so much about abortion, hopefully these ads brought some reality to what abortion actually is. Now to some headlines. In this week's McBlog, Bob calls out the mainstream media for their one-sided coverage of the US election.
I said, well, I'm going to do it whether the women like it or not. I'm going to protect them.
After Trump's comments around reproductive rights in Wisconsin last night, Kamala Harris was quick to pounce.
See what happened there? After Donald Trump's comments around reproductive rights. He wasn't talking about reproductive rights, Jack. And they deliberately cut it off so that it wasn't in context. Trump's comments were not about reproductive rights, end of. But that's the narrative being pushed by the mainstream media. As soon as Trump says women, the narrative is immediately abortion. Ironically, those same people can't define what a woman is.
And finally, be sure to tune into this week's Family Matters episode. Simon O'Connor speaks with Roger Partridge from the New Zealand Initiative about overreach by some court judges. Take a look.
Unlike Parliament, the courts aren't at all equipped to work out what society's changing values are. They don't have a law commission to do a big investigation. They're not subject to the submission-making process where anybody with an interest can make a submission. And even more than that, they're not democratically accountable if they get their decision wrong. So if Parliament makes those big social policy decisions, voters have a chance to say, no, you took the law in the wrong direction and vote parliamentarians out. So our judges don't have the tools to make big social policy questions, and they don't have the accountability to make those social policy judgments. And the risk is that people start to feel that when the court says it's changing the law to match its view of society's changing values, that it's really changing the law to match the particular judges in the court's values. And that politicises the judiciary, and there's a grave danger in that.
Thank you for watching PulsePoint. You can check out more on our website, familyfirst.nz. I'm James Williams. See you next week.